I call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201, today, Tuesday, May 25th, 2010. Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey?
Here.
Mr. Charleston?
Here.
Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Ms. Kelly? Mrs. Lubeck?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
If everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Some are in our books, some are in your orange folder. So, starting with March 2nd. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 2nd, 2010 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the March 2nd, 2010 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Okay, March 9th. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 9th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the March 9th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, March 16th. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the March 16th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? March 23rd. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 23rd, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, April 13th. The Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 13th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And last, the Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the April 13th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Public comment. I have one card. Rob Spinski, please.
Hello, my name is Rob Zapinski, and my wife and I have lived in Westmont in District 201 since 1987. We have 4 children who have attended schools in District 201, 2 that have graduated from high school and 2 that will be graduating next year. I'm speaking tonight to strongly urge you to reconsider your decision to eliminate the position of curriculum director. During the public forum held about a month ago, you heard presentations from a number of different people who spoke on behalf of a much larger group of parents with regard to steps they were willing to take to assist the district. They identified programs and positions which they supported, notwithstanding the need for budget cuts. I cannot say that I am speaking on behalf of all of those parents, but I am sure that there are many in this community who would agree with the statement that doing away with the position of curriculum director is a bad idea and represents a step backward for the district. Tough times require tough measures and hard decisions. However, I believe that eliminating the position of curriculum director is not the answer to the budget issues that the district is currently facing. The position of curriculum director was most recently established as a result of the strategic plan of the district, a plan that was created with input from the community, parents, staff, administration, and the board. A need was observed, and one of the solutions proposed by the Strategic Planning Committee to address that need was the establishment of the curriculum director position. Since then, this district has experienced measurable improvements in terms of curriculum alignment across grade levels in different schools, and as students continue their education from one grade level to the next and transition from one building to the next. The curriculum director has provided oversight and resources to the curriculum advisory process, has assisted in making the best use of standardized testing to serve students' needs, and has done a lot to introduce best practices into learning strategies and techniques in our schools. More than ever, I believe that the elimination of this position at this critical time is not in the best interests of our students and our district because of the loss of continuity that will accompany the loss of this position. Our district is presently faced with the situation of having to hire a new superintendent and a new business manager, 2 out of the 4 full-time administration positions that have district-wide oversight and responsibility. By eliminating the position of curriculum director, this district will be left with only one person who has a full-time administration position with district-wide responsibility and who will not be completely new to the district, unless, of course, we hire from within to fill those positions. The loss of all of these individuals represents a tremendous loss of resources and institutional knowledge about the district, and my fear is this will adversely impact the educational strides and other improvements this district has been making in the last handful of years. Unfortunately, I do not have the answer as to how to make up for the budget shortfalls or what other cuts should be made in order for the district to be able to reinstate the position of curriculum director. I sincerely hope that I am wrong, but I believe that the elimination of this position will put a bit of a tarnish on our motto of small schools, large opportunities, because it will result in a very real reduction in the quality of the educational opportunities being offered by our schools. In closing, I just want to say I would be remiss, though, in not thanking the board for the service that they present to the community and to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Then we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is amended with, in your orange folder is personnel recommendations and approval of student tour request. Any comments?
Can I request that we pull item, the personnel reinstatements to discuss that or vote on that separately?
So employment and rehiring of staff?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And I'd like to pull one of the contracts for discussion, and some of it may be closed, some of it open, I'm not sure.
Under B?
Under B, and that's the high school assistant principal.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull the auditorium seating for separate vote.
Anything else? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended with pulling these 3 specific items out.
You know, I have one other
I'm sorry.
question. I'm sorry, I have one other question on one of the administrative contracts, and that is the technology director. I just had a question about the number of vacation days, if that's a .6 position, and it's listed as having the same number of vacation days as all the other positions.
Her days are prorated, so she gets .6 of that. But that's the contract that came back from the attorneys.
So the contract should state
The
that.
template you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so we can change the template?
Every one of the administrative contracts was wrong that came back from the attorneys, so I had to fix all of them yesterday. And that specifically was one of the items that was incorrect. So we put in the new contract, part-time employment, and all of her benefits are prorated.
Okay. But we don't have that in our board book, so.
No.
No, because Maureen was out last week. So she was at a conference, and we didn't get the information from council until last Wednesday, even though we asked for it about 3 weeks ago. So,
Oh, I
Done the
saw
best
an
we
email
could.
that said you asked for it on Monday for Wednesday. Do we want to table this then, till we get the contracts?
no, I don't think
Why
you
would
want
we
to.
table it?
Well, the
Because we don't
contract-
have the
we don't have
contracts in front of
What we're
us.
voting on here is what's in our book. As presented.
We have them, right?
Mhm.
So,
I don't personally. Do you?
no. Judy has all the accurate
I have
copies.
the correct
Yeah,
versions for signature.
right.
Did you want to?
Yeah, I'm,
The,
let me
the,
just,
the compensation is all accurate as far as total compensation, so.
But I guess the question is, one of the board members is asking something about something that's in there, and you're saying now that everything's not correct?
What Maureen just said is she had to make changes to almost every one of those because what the template came back for wasn't in line with what our contracts have previously had.
but the template was just, I mean, it was blank, and you were adding all this information to it, correct? I mean, the specifics.
Right. There was one template that came, and all board members got that as well. We just had to,
Again, I never got it, and I was out all last week, so I reviewed them yesterday. Almost every single one was wrong, and I finished it up at about 5 o'clock today. So what you have, what Judy has, is a signed copy from all the administrators with the exact same benefits and salary as last year. So no raise, exact same benefits.
does that answer your question?
Part-time status. Yeah, I mean, it answers the question about the vacation days, yes.
Okay. Do we want to just have these discussions first and then vote on this? Should we do that first?
I would suggest, if we're going to pull one, most of one is pulled anyway, so why don't we just pull
Okay,
1 and 5,
okay.
approve 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7,
And 8,
and 8?
the amended student tour.
Ah,
That's
yes,
in your orange folder.
yes. Thank you.
Okay, should we do that then?
And
Hang
then
on.
we can come back to 1 and 5.
We're just pulling out all of 1 and 5.
All of one
Okay.
and all of five. Okay.
So then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, numbers 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and number 8, which is amended in your board books.
So moved?
Second, somebody?
Second.
Second, okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Okay, let's then look at number 1, employment and rehiring of staff. Kathy, did you want to start?
Yes, I just wanted to bring up a conversation that we heard at an IASA breakfast that I attended last week, where Peg Agnos, she's our lobbyist for LEND, she was discussing that we should be receiving some funding, hopefully, towards the end of summer. The school district should be for hires and rehires. And she had strongly encouraged the school districts not to do any rehiring until we actually get the funding later on this summer. Am I stating that correctly, Dr. Ball?
That's accurate.
So I wanted to just bring that information to the board because she feels that if we do that now, then we're going to miss out on that funding opportunity. And considering the situation that we're in financially, it doesn't mean to say that we're not going to do these rehires. It just means that we're going to delay them until we can get that funding later on in the summer. So I wanted to bring that information back to the board. So
And
we
this
can-
is funding coming from where?
From the
Actually, it would be federal money.
federal money.
And do we have an idea, have we gotten any information exactly how much we're going to be getting?
No. I mean, the state of Illinois is due approximately $1.2 billion. If Senator Harkin's bill as it's configured now would continue and be approved. Right now, the thought is it will probably be approved in early July.
So what you're suggesting, I like that. There's some good suggestions in there. Just kind of concerned about what we do with all these, with the staff that we're going to leave kind of hanging out there in terms of specifically some of the people that we talked about during our budget cuts that are the ones that are listed in here, but I guess then all of the teachers, and doesn't that impact staffing plans for the district?
What was the question?
Staffing plans, doesn't that impact staffing plans if we don't really decide until we know about any of this federal money?
Well, the conversation is that, you know, they know that they're going to be hired back pretty much. It's just that it's a timing issue. Would that be an accurate statement?
I think, the point that Ms. Agnos was trying to make from LEND is that the assumption is at this point that Illinois is going to get about $1.2 billion in support to bring teachers back who have been let go. Teachers writ large, educational staff, all right? What her recommendation is don't bring anybody back yet, because if you bring them back, the money won't be there. Part of that is because when we got the original stimulus money from the state, it came in such a time frame that school districts are already stuck with the staff they had. They had missed statutory deadlines to let people go. And so when the state used that stimulus money to fill in the general state aid, the federal government wanted to know how many jobs were saved. Well, effectively, for the money that went to education, no jobs were saved because the people, already had jobs for that year. And so this legislation is written in such a way that it will only fund people who don't currently have a job, so that the federal government can say, we saved X amount of jobs. Whereas last time around, there was lots of drama around how many jobs were really saved by that stimulus funding. And so if the state's going to give that amount of money again effectively for the educational program, the federal government is going to do that, they want to know how many jobs they saved. So the recommendation from the lobbyist at LEND is do not hire people back yet, because the district will not then be eligible for federal funding for those positions.
Do we have any documentation that talks to this? Like, if the state is in line to get 1.2 billion, I mean,
We don't know how they're going to divide that up, really.
Right, well,
I
the
mean,
question
we
is.
talked about, kind of a similar financial thing, a meeting or two ago where, when these things aren't very well defined and it's kind of pending legislation that we really don't know or really can't assume that money is going to be there until we get some sort of real notification. So how long are we going to wait, I guess is the question, because the state could say, well, we're going to let you know early in July, and they may not let us know till September. I mean, how long are we going to wait?
And I think that is the key question, is how long, do we wait? So, having said that, what are our meeting dates in July and August?
I don't know offhand. You only have one in July.
we have one in June 15th, and one in July, and one in August.
Okay. I mean, I would personally suggest deferring the rehiring decisions until, the Senator Harkin's bill has worked its way through. And because ideally, any federal dollars that are a part of this are dollars that we don't have to take out of District 201's coffers. So, and given that we're going to have a budget deficit that's sizable anyway, I mean, anything that we can do to capture new dollars is a good thing. So, I would suggest deferring the decision until the July meeting, but I don't know that I would want to go past the July meeting. And we do everybody at the July meeting.
I think that's
Well,
wise.
I have a question. Are we, all of the people that we have notified and are we on the hook for unemployment payments for these people starting the end of the school year? Do we have to pay unemployment?
No, they'll get paid through the end of August. They're paid, even though their work is done June 4th, well, May 27th this year. They're actually paid through the end of August. So your unemployment doesn't start until that's over. So no.
Okay. I guess I feel that I really like the idea of the federal money, but I don't like the idea of leaving this many staff people on the hook. I mean, I guess the question is, are we going to hire them back whether or not we get the federal money?
I think that's what Dan is saying.
So that's
Yes,
the
we're gonna
question.
hike them
Short
back.
answer is yes, but I think we should do, what is reasonable and prudent to try to capture that money.
Right. But to the extent of the people that are involved here, I'm trying to figure out how to rationalize that. So what we're saying is that we're going to bring back all of the people on our RIF list.
Well, the ones that you have listed here, and then, of course, the aides and
Right, there are a certain amount of
certain
reductions that
people
some
are
people won't be back.
dependent on enrollment. Right.
When has the district historically let the people know that they're not going to be coming back with RIF notices?
Letting them know that they're not coming
That they're
back?
not coming back?
Usually a final decision isn't made until August, unless it's a person who we don't want back for, performance. I mean, we will start to bring some people back as soon as we had enrollment numbers and, a good idea of what our budget was going to be for the next year. And that's, typically been anywhere from the middle of May till the end of June. And then support staff, generally, we've brought most of the aides back in either late July or August.
I'm just trying to figure out, there's some way we can,
How can we kind of put some of their minds at ease, I guess?
just to the
So that
extent,
so that they don't feel like they're left just kind of hanging out there without a job or without any kind of,
Well, I think that.
there's no way of doing
I
that?
think that the people that that we were going to take care of this evening, we could say that, yes, they're going to be hired back, but just not at this time, because we want to wait to see if we can get that funding.
Well, I don't
Is
think
that a
you
fair
can't make any
statement?
sort of official commitment on the part of the board, or you've effectively de facto hired them back, in which case you're
Okay.
not going to be eligible for any potential federal relief.
Okay. Well, then
I
guess
think,
we-
and I'll try to make a statement in the negative and hope that it works and assuages some minds. We talked about budget cuts and arrived at conclusions on budget cuts. To the best of my knowledge, for speaking for me, I have no intention of speaking about any additional budget cuts. Other than the ones that we've approved and are on the website.
but there is some vagueness of when we bring people
It
back.
is. It is, and I don't know, how to address that, except that I think it's reasonable and prudent to see if we can capture these additional dollars.
I agree.
And if all it is time, in my view, I'm prepared to, I think it's the right thing to do to wait the extra time.
Is there any way we can move that to June instead of July?
No,
We're
not
being
according
told by the
to-
lobbyists that the Congress isn't going to pass the legislation until early July.
Right.
So until the federal government makes their move, the board is constrained if they wish to have access to that potential federal money.
Well, I guess I'll have to say, reiterating what Joel said, I guess a couple meetings ago, we talked about how we're not in the position of sitting around waiting to see if there is some sort of money, and yet now that's exactly what's being brought to us.
But I think that you have to respect the process, though, and we did follow the process of doing, the reductions in force, and now that we're in a position to, possibly get this funding. I think that the people who are listening to the meeting, who are in these positions, would probably understand that we are just trying to respect the process that's being put in front of us. I think they understand what we're saying, even though we can't come right out and say that for sure, you know, in July or whatever, you know, your job is going to be reinstated. They understand what we're saying. And you can't give them the assurances that you're looking to give them. But I think they understand what we're saying here. They understand that, that there's this funding that's available to us that is potentially going to be available to us for rehiring. So, you know what I'm saying? I know it sometimes we have to do things that are uncomfortable and make people uncomfortable, but we also have to be prudent and try to be as fiscally responsible as we can be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I guess I just am trying to find a way to balance fiscal responsibility with human responsibility.
And I
what's
appreciate
in the
that,
best
too.
interest of our students in making sure that we have a staff that we value. There's a balance there.
I don't think there's any question about valuing the staff. None at all. None at all. No question at all.
I think at this point, it's worth a little bit of the risk for the possibility of this funding. I don't like the time frame, I don't like the wait, but I think it's worth the risk at this time.
So is the consensus to wait till July?
That would be my view.
With the people on the list that we ripped, but what about the dean? This is part of this. So can we remove that and approve that?
Yes, because
She's in
that position
administration.
wouldn't be impacted at all
Okay.
by any funding, because it's not a job that's been released.
And the new hire at the junior high, are we leaving her
You know,
off too, or what are we doing there?
I would wait with her, and I spoke to her after I knew this was a possibility, that these positions wouldn't be approved, and she has a job currently, so she's not going to take another job. She can be patient.
Okay.
You know, but the
So-
dean is obviously a different issue, because we don't want to hire somebody, in the case of Miss Jordan, I don't want to bring her back, or I don't want to hire her, even though, again, it's not tied to the federal funding, so we could, while we have people who are doing the same job, who are in the district, who have been non-renewed. So we would ask the new hire to wait, and we can hire her at the same time we bring back the other people.
So I guess I don't understand, why would you not have that same reiteration for the new dean position? That's a new hire.
But that's a new administrative hire.
It's
They're not taking any other tenured teacher's position or non-tenured teacher's position. And there's nobody who's been riffed who's waiting to be a dean or athletic director. The other issue is with Mr. McCord's contract up, a week after the school year is out, that we'd like to get him hired so we can have some transition time with the old athletic director and the new athletic director.
Would the dean position be part of, eligible under this potential federal funding?
As I said a second ago, no, it would not, because it's not a position that's been released. Mr. McCord simply retired.
Okay, so the federal money is only for rehires?
Yes. It's only to bring people back who were cut.
Can we get some information from somebody about this? Is there any documentation that's?
One of the LEND reports, I know, in the Alliance has talked about Harkin's bill in general. I haven't gotten anything in specific. I would have shared it with you.
Okay. Could we get that before the next meeting? Something that we can?
I can try.
So what is the consensus of the board? Does anybody want to wait? Who wants June, July? What do we want
For the rehires,
for the rehires?
July, because she did say that it would be around that time that we would hear something.
Well, I think I don't think you want to set a date. You want to wait until the federal legislation is passed and then bring people back, if that's your intent. Now, you may want to say at some point, here's the drop dead date at which we're going to bring people back anyway, but I don't think you want to set that arbitrarily until you know where the legislation is.
I mean, if it
You can
comes,
always
if
have
we
a
hear
special meeting the
something,
day after the legislation's passed.
The whole thing's arbitrary, so, I mean,
Yes.
if there's,
I think if we hear something sooner, we can do it sooner, but if we don't, then what would be the drop dead date?
Well, I think we should just plan on revisiting the question in the July meeting.
okay, Dan, you're saying the July meeting?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. Diane?
July.
Kathy?
I'm good with revisiting in July.
Okay, Kathy?
Revisit it in July?
Revisiting the question in
Sure.
July.
Okay. Joel?
I have some serious doubts about it, but I guess if we're, consensus is obviously to wait, so.
So in July, we'll make a determination as to then whether we're going to rehire these people?
To visit the question, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I mean, plan on putting it on the agenda for July, and we can talk about it at that point, knowing what we know at that point.
I guess that's the question. What if we don't, what if that hasn't been decided yet? Are we then going to just keep?
Can we just have this conversation again in July? I don't understand what the driven, what
Because
you're
there's
trying
a
to-
difference of opinion at the board table. That's why.
Okay, so you want to set a deadline? Is that what it?
We have a number of our employees that are sitting there waiting for
Marie,
rehires.
I know, you don't have to explain this to
Well,
me.
that's why we're
We've
having
been
this
here
discussion.
before. So can you just make it very clear to me? I don't quite understand what you're pressing for.
I'm pressing to deal with these staff members that we have that do not know that they're being brought back from us.
Okay.
I understand the federal money. That's a very good point.
Okay, and revisiting the question in July is not okay with you?
I would like to make a decision as to whether we're going to, what if, we just went through this, whether we're going to base financial decisions on legislation that is working its way through various stages of Congress. So so the question is, are we going to sit around till July, and what happens if in July it's not there? Do we then expect these many staff members just to hang in there with us? That's the question. Or are we going to say, in July, we're going to make a determination, if we don't know about the federal money?
I think.
It's not exactly like there's this great track record going on.
Well, I think what Dan's saying is, based on the information that we have in July, then we'll decide what decision we'll make at that time. We'll either decide that we're going to do the rehire then, or we're going to, postpone it till August, or at that time, based on the information we have at that time, we'll make a decision how we're
And
going
that's
to
what I
move
feel
forward.
uncomfortable about, because now we're going to get to a July meeting. and we only have one meeting in July, and then we're going to potentially put it off till August.
We may or may
let-
not. We may
Can we
decide
take
to
a vote?
just,
Yes,
We
we can
vote on this?
We can certainly
Okay.
take a vote.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think
What do you want to do?
that
You want
was
to do July
what you
date?
were, if that was what you wanted to know, though, what we're going to do in July.
Right.
And I
So if-
think that's what
So
the
if,
answer is.
so what you want to do is just table it till July, but that's not a drop dead date in your mind? It's just
Well,
a revisit?
we clearly have a Lend Alliance that we're a part of, and advisors who are intimately involved in the legislative process at both the state, particularly at the state level, who can give us some, who by that time will clearly have some feedback for us. At this point, that advice is wait.
Okay, I guess I'll weigh in that I feel uncomfortable waiting to a date unknown to bring back our staff. So that's my vote. Joel?
Well, I too feel uncomfortable about it, but I mean, like, we already kind of went down the line, and so it seems like it's gonna be July, so.
So we'll put it on the agenda for July to revisit. Okay? Then the next item is,
Before you move on, do you want to take action on the dean candidate?
Do we want to vote on the dean's
Can I
position?
motion that we approve the dean
that's what I'm getting.
that's before us?
So we are taking then the,
You're Taking action to employ.
We're taking off of this, the Westmont Junior High Library Media Specialist, and we're just going to deal with the dean then?
Correct.
Is that right?
That would be my recommendation.
And the remainder of the stuff after the underlined portion as well. So the only thing we're dealing with
The
is
only
the
thing
dean.
you're doing is just the dean.
Okay, the chair will entertain,
Question about the dean's position. This is not an administrative contract, or it's?
Yes, it is. He's an administrative contractor. He has an administrative stipend on top of a teacher's contract. He's placed on the scale, just like Mr. McCord was.
do we have that in our books?
You have it attached. Because it's the exact same format that Ms. Bartos's contract has. He hasn't signed a contract yet because we just offered him the position today, so.
Why is it structured that way as opposed to just a straight-out administrative contract?
That's just what that high school position has always been that way. It's been that way for at least the 25 years that Mr. McCord was in the district.
So what's in our book right here in front of us is we have do we have a contract for this person?
No, because we just interviewed him to bring him in today. So Ms. McMahon has not had a chance to draft his contract yet.
So will that contract follow
It
the
will
templates
follow
of the rest of the administrators?
Exact same template that Mrs. Bartos's contract is. It's a one-page form showing the stipend as athletic director. And
That one,
that's
just
it.
go back.
Just passed it.
You just passed it.
This one?
Nope,
No.
backwards, 3 pages. That one.
This one. So this
Yes.
is not going to be Nancy's name. This is going to have Dennis.
That is for Nancy. There'll be a similar contract that instead of just saying assistant principal, we'll say dean athletic director, and we'll have a stipend amount based on Mr. McCord's stipend amount this year, right? Which is approximately $7,000 on top of a teacher salary scale placement at MA step 10, which is what that sheet says.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the hiring of Dennis Renner as the Westmont High School Dean of Student Athletic Director.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Actually, this is a consent, do we need a roll call?
Yeah, let's.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton,
Yes.
Mrs. Luback,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, then, the other item that was pulled is some of the administrative contracts. Joel, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have some, I have questions. The one was answered about technology director, and in one of the contracts, it's listed that there's an option for if you don't take the health coverage. Is that something that's offered to everybody and they get to choose?
No, that's only in that one particular administrator's contract.
Okay.
And that's just something that's negotiated?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments?
And then I have questions about the assistant principal position.
Sure.
And
Well, to the extent that
Let's,
there's more detailed discussions, can we take those discussions to closed and hash those out and then come back out and vote on those?
that's
you
fine with
could,
me.
but you don't have to. I mean, I guess it
realize
depends
we
on what
don't
the
have
question
to,
is.
but if the, given,
Personnel related?
it's very specific.
Yeah. Okay, does that sound?
That's fine with me.
Okay. So, do we want to hold off on all of these and then discuss it after closed, or
I would go ahead and vote. My recommendation would be vote on the other ones.
do we want to
Yeah,
vote on
that-
the rest?
That's the only one I have questions about.
Okay, and that's the
The other question.
assistant principal at the high school?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else?
So do you want to vote on the other
That's what I'm
ones
going to say.
then?
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the administrative contracts in front of us with the exception for the time being till the end of the evening of the assistant principal at the high school. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the contracts in front of us.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to that after closed. We'll discuss it in closed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Actually, we need to visit the auditorium
I'm
seating
sorry,
bid.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Did you want to start that?
Well, I mean, my only comment on this, since I asked for it to be pulled, is I think it, in my mind, given that the cost has gone up about by a third from what we thought it was going to be, and we're asked the architects to go through the grade schools and look for all of the issues there, that I don't see it as a good idea to spend this much money at this particular time for this item, given that we may have some other pressing needs that we really haven't identified yet. So,
Do we are there any other pressing needs that you're aware of, Maureen?
That I'm aware of? Well, we've had several discussions in the facilities committee, the board's facilities committee, regarding the other off-the-side list of Mike Morris's, help me out here, Mike, things like roofs, things like that, that need to be addressed at some point in the next 5 years. The idea was that we were going to go back to strategic planning committee and talk about those things, and then perhaps include those in the next bond issuance.
Right. I mean,
In the next few years.
there's nothing right now that if the board chose not to do this project that would say, okay, we can take that money and do X, Y, and Z over the summer. Right? There's nothing in the hopper that's
Absolutely
been
not
that
this summer,
defined
no.
at all.
Okay, because I think that these, personally, I think the seats are in really dire straits. I know we just attended the high school graduation, and the seat that I was sitting on was practically on the floor. So, and I know the one that Miss Kelly was sitting on was, I mean, it was in pretty bad shape. So anyway, and I saw the pictures that you provided. There are some seats that the hardware is falling off, if not off. So I thought that the information that you provided was pretty compelling in terms of safety and need. And I mean, these are from 1970,
75, right, when they were built?
1975.
Yeah,
So-
that's all the original equipment.
But in light of, and not to say that when I saw the new dollar amount, it wasn't a little bit of a shock to me, but I know the construction market has been hard hit by this economy, and they're giving you bare bones dollars. They're not throwing in there a lot of fluff. If we were to wait a year or two, this price could double.
We talked in the facilities committee at length about the fact that we knew these numbers would come in higher than the original budget. We knew that the scope of the original project was only for chairs. It didn't include carpeting, it didn't include the lighting, which is actually against code right now. It didn't include the widening of the steps. So there's concrete work, there's electrical work also that needs to be done. Even if you decide not to do this project, at the very least, you have to do the electrical work because it's against code. So I think that the original architect was remiss in not including the rest of those subs into the scope of this project. So we already knew that they were going to come in higher, and I would agree with Diane that if we do wait, another year or another two, this 304 is going to turn into 400 or 500. So I understand your concerns, and I understand what we've instructed the architects to do for the elementary schools. However, I really don't think that still precludes not moving forward with some projects at the junior high and the high school.
I mean, this room is used virtually every day.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like it's only there for spring concerts. It's not like it's only there for choir or other things. It's used virtually every day. It's used by students every day.
But when we were in the Building Grounds Committee meeting, I mean, there were things that came up like, you know, the electrical situation at Manning, and that being could possibly a huge expense if there was, you know, and that's going to be part of the, I know, the architect's review. And if we don't spend this money now, we'll still have it later to spend. It's not like the money's going to go. But I mean, I'm just questioning, waiting to evaluate the
You're
big
shaking
picture,
your-
I guess.
You're shaking your
No,
head
the money,
no?
the money has already been specified for building projects through 2012. So the money has to be used by 2012. And
No,
you-
that wasn't true.
Ideally, it should be used by 2012, yes.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have
That
to
said, that was certainly in the capital plan. And from my vantage point, I mean, this auditorium, the building, well, the auditorium at the high school is, first off, in my view, it's the district's auditorium at the high school. It's not the high school auditorium. We know that we're committed to that facility. And that auditorium will continue to be used for years and years and years. There's an issue with ADA compliance right now in terms of accessibility. There's an issue with step safety. There's an issue with lighting safety. It's a 35-year-old, you know, just infrastructure in terms of the seating and stuff like that. And from my vantage point, a failure to address all of those things and put that particular piece of our district facilities in place so that we can move forward with it from here forward, I think we'd be remiss not to do it now, particularly in light of the you know, construction market and the contractor market right now, and the sub market as well. So yeah, I'm as much as I'm disappointed at the fact that the original estimate was underscoped. Yeah, I'm very supportive of the project.
I guess I would have to say that, you know, again, in terms of the projects, I'm sure that, you know, now we know about the lights because, you know, Mr. Cashman has looked into that. I would imagine that there's probably other things in the district buildings that probably fall under those same categories. So I guess the thing that I'm concerned about is just the money that we have in terms of one of the things that the strategic plan specifically talked a lot about was walls for the high school, and that directly translates to academics. And I totally agree. The seats at the high school are not in the best shape, but there's many things. You know, yesterday was the Manning Elementary Awards thing, and it was about as hot as it could possibly be. And so, and I know we're looking into the elementary buildings and that, but from my perspective, as someone who is holding the fiscal responsibility of the district as the board is, I have trouble with spending this kind of money on one element of our district, especially since it has been discussed about walls in particular at the high school, which would directly impact the student learning. So granted that the seats have been there for as long as they have and all of that. I don't think anybody hasn't been there and sat in a bad seat. But I think if we only have X amount of dollars to spend, to me, I think we should, and I know this was, these projects were approved in 2007, 2008, and again, I'll say it's a different world than it was then, and we don't have an unlimited amount of money. So I feel strongly that the items on the project list, this included, I would like to see everything revisited with the strategic plan, and especially really looking at what will it cost to put walls in at the high school. If that is one of the buildings that we are not going to eliminate in the near future or think about redoing, then I think we need to prioritize. And it's not like, you know, if I have a house and I want to add on a wing, but then my roof caves in, I got to take care of the roof first. And in the strategic plan that we've all had, walls and windows are right there. And auditorium seats are not.
Well, but I think the point that Dan makes is a valid point in that, you know, that building is probably not going to be one of the buildings that we're ever going to replace.
Right.
And so I think it would be prudent to take advantage of the construction time, in that we probably did get a really fair price, even though it was higher than we anticipated because the project was under scoped. So, and like they said, if we wait a couple years, it's probably going to be a lot higher. So it might be more prudent to take advantage and have the work done now rather than wait 5 years from now and have it be even double what the price is now.
But by the same token, wouldn't walls also cost more money in 3, 4, or 5 years?
They may or may not.
Yes, but you're not going to be able to put those walls in this summer anyway, because you haven't done the architectural and engineering work to do that.
Well, I think having sat on both of these committees for the last few years, I think it's important to note that both plans account for very large projects at each building and some smaller projects at each building. I think that the walls at the high school as well as walls at the junior high were two of the large projects at those buildings that, honestly, I don't know how you're going to get past doing them without a referendum. You're looking at enclosing spaces, you're looking at security issues, you're looking at lighting issues, HVAC. It's more than just putting up walls. If we put up walls like we've done before, you have all of those issues that still need to be addressed, which have been addressed haphazardly at the high school at best. So if you're going to look at all of the buildings in total, large scope, I don't know how this district is going to get past a referendum for buildings. With that said, and I don't understand how what you're going to ask Mr. Cashman to do and bring forth to the board isn't going to come to the same conclusion. Whether or not it's a retrofit or a rebuild, it's going to come to the same conclusion, most likely. You're talking major dollars, more than the $2 million we have sitting in working cash fund.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it's, well, in my advice, I don't think that it would be wise to just not do any of the smaller scope projects in anticipation of spending the money on something else. Because the money that you have sitting in the bank right now is not going to finance the larger projects. It's just not.
It's
You have
not gonna cover the
elevators, you
walls.
have walls, you have perhaps retrofits or rebuilds of 2 buildings. I mean, those are major, major issues, and $2 million isn't going to cut it.
And I see the chairs as kind of like a roof that's falling apart. Some point, they will fail when somebody's sitting in them, and there could be damages or cost to the person who's injured. To me, it's kind of like your roof falling apart. At some point, you have to address it, and if you don't address it now, do you wait till you have the fire? Do you wait till the chairs are failing to the point that nobody can sit in half the stadium? When's that time frame?
Well, and I guess I'm not saying that, never do it or it's not a worthwhile project, but we have Mr. Cashman going through the elementary education buildings and, maybe other things are going to come up. We don't know. I'm saying wait till we get that picture of those buildings, then make a decision.
Right, but I think we already had people come through the buildings and determine that this project needed to be done. So I think that we should take that into serious consideration and accept their recommendation, is how I'm feeling about it.
No.
So.
I guess to me, it seems like we're putting off a lot of things at the grade schools while we're waiting for Mr. Cashman's study, and then after that, it will be waiting, we'll have to prioritize things at some point. I mean, there'll be things that you can't wait any longer, if it's electrical, if it's fire alarm systems, or whatever, so.
I guess I would say, in light of the fact that this work has been done and we did ask to have it bid, that I would be in favor of approving this, even though it is more. But if we, as a board, could hold off on any other projects on the list until we do have a strategic thought process and go through that before we just go ahead with a list that's 4 years old.
There wasn't that, you approved, you saw what we added to the list. There wasn't that, this was the biggest item that was out to bid. There was like the cameras at, the replacement of the cameras at Manning. There were smaller items.
On which?
On the building and grounds.
On Mike's extra list?
No,
The major one?
for this summer.
The only thing
Oh,
we
for this
had,
summer. Yeah, sure.
the only thing that we voted on was to send this out to bid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's all I'm saying, is like, you know, I can approve that, but I would just, again, beg
I mean-
and ask to have all the
And Marie,
the
that's,
other.
I mean, that's fine, obviously, because most of these projects are always done in the summer anyway. So that gives you another 9 months or 8 months.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 months, Steve would probably like, in order to wait to go forward, but your strategic planning process isn't going to be done in that time. So if you want for Mr. Cashman to focus for this next 6 months to 8 months on strictly giving you that report on the elementary schools, then that's fine. And if you want to hold off on those other projects, obviously, that's fine as well. But, you know, you have some time, I guess, is my point.
Well, that's all I'm saying, is I'm saying that, you know, I believe today I can approve my own vote, my opinion is that I could approve this. But the other items on the project list, I would, again, ask and beg the board to hold off on those projects because those lists were prepared 4 years ago. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, tonight, I think we're just.
This one here.
We're just doing this one.
So are there any
I don't think
other?
we're discussing the other projects
Any,
tonight, right?
No, but we're
This is the
talking
last
about.
of the projects to be bid for this
this.
summer. This is
Okay.
it for this summer.
Okay.
Okay, this is the only one for the summer?
No, it's the last of those
The
for the summer.
last?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well then,
Okay,
I'd
any
like
other
to
comments? Okay.
I'd like to
Then-
make a motion then to approve the bid. Okay.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the bid for the auditorium seating replacement at Westmont High School to Vanguard Construction for a total bid price of $304,200 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
No.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, now we have everything on the consent agenda with the exception of what we're going to talk about in closed. So then we'll move to superintendent's report.
Regarding funding, we already spoke about that to some extent. There is a request from a parent to add another access sidewalk at Miller so that students don't have to walk around to use the driveway and come in that way, but they could just come right across the street. An access sidewalk that would be there right in front of the entrance of the building. It cost about $1,900 to do that. Is not within the scope of any of the projects that we've articulated for the summer, and so if the board wants to do that, let us know.
Would that be encouraging people to cross the street at that juncture too then?
I think you could make that assumption. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Because there's no sidewalk on the other side of the street, running east and west.
Correct.
That would be an awkward place to put a sidewalk.
I'm just forwarding the request.
I guess I can't spatially,
Think
picture
about the
this.
front of Miller.
Yeah.
You know how you got that that U driveway? The idea would be somewhere in the middle of that U, there's a ditch there, right?
Yeah.
You'd basically construct a sidewalk from the street, which isn't like curved there, which is interesting as well. But from the street shoulder across the ditch to the sidewalk / driveway. And even then, the awkward thing would be, even if somebody came across, they would have to go through the driveway.
Through the
Correct. You'd
traffic
have
of the
to put in
buses.
Yeah.
You'd then probably have to put a crosswalk in there as well, yes.
So it just seems like an awkward spot to do that, and would introduce a whole series of other sort of
I was just wondering how
possible,
safe that's gonna be.
possible things. So, knowing what I know about that spot, I don't think that would be a terribly good idea.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
The social studies training is articulated there. I do find it interesting that Marker District 60, I know there's been lots of concern here that we're pushing our children too fast by asking our students to move into algebra's 8th grade. Marker is moving the vast majority of their students to algebra and also trying to push a number of their students into geometry. I just thought that was interesting to share with you. And then the information there about the final ESL CAC meeting of the year as well. That's all.
Board reports? Is there anything? Kathy, you wanted to talk.
Yes, I just wanted to remind everyone that this coming Sunday, May 30th, we have our Race to the Flag, which is a 5K run and walk. The junior high and high school cross-country teams are going to kick off the event at 7:15, bright and early. That's 7:15 a.m. And they will be running, I'm not sure if they're going to have other schools joining them or not, but they will definitely be there. And then at 7:45 a.m., the adult teams, runners first, and then the walkers will be heading out. And that will be starting at Ty Park over by, that would be like by Plaza and Black Hawk. And the route goes through Oakwood subdivision. And it seems like a really nice route. And then we also have a pancake breakfast hosted by the Lions Club from 7 to 10 a.m. And we do have awards that are going to be given out and a nice ceremony dedicated to those that are serving in the services. So it's going to be a really nice event. So we hope that many of you will join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Finance? Ms. Jones?
First report on attachment F1 is the nutrition report for the month of April, fiscal year to date through April 30th. Basically, we're running about $10,000 better than last year, mostly due to reduced caterings, which was part of budget cuts from last year. If you flip the page, we've got the summary fund balance for student activities. I know I said this last month, but Mr. Carr promises me he'll give me a transfer to cover that incentive account that's in the negative. So other than that, all the other accounts are have a positive balance. The fund balance summary for the board's accounts, you'll see a negative dollar amount of $16,000 in the insurance fund for the first time this year. We're waiting for reimbursements from the excess insurance carrier. That's about $80,000. So that account will go back to the positive, although it's definitely a decreasing balance. So just something for you to be aware of. If it goes into the negative, that has to be funded from the education fund. Again, we have about $2.8 million in the working cash. Once you take out the capital projects negative balance, that will be transferred over at the end of June. And we'll do those at the June 15th board meeting. So we'll have about $2.5 million in there after the seats project is completed. The next report, the statement of position. We have about $9.3 million in assets right now, mostly cash balances at Clarendon Hills Bank. About $2.5 million in investments. Again, continue to get the 0.75% interest rate at Clarendon Hills, which is just much better than I can get anywhere else right now. So that should carry you through another year and a half, I believe. So we'll be okay on that, and I would imagine you'll continue to see a higher cash balance at Clarendon Hills instead of investments. The next report, the budget evaluation. Basically, as of April 30th, the state owes us $651,000. We received word that the fourth payment for the mandated categoricals will be funded from federal stimulus funding. However, they're still unsure how they're going to finance the second and the third payments. So
We're going to get the fourth before June 30th.
We'll get the fourth before we get the second and the
Right.
third.
I read that and I...
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's just a different source of funding. So we'll continue to wait and see what happens with the second and third. Obviously, I don't anticipate getting them by June 30th. So we'll just wait and see.
Can I ask a crazy question? Why would do you know why the federal government would fund the fourth and not the second and third?
The federal government isn't funding them. The state is simply using the remains of their ARRR funding to make the cash available to do that. It's not coming through a federal program. It's just a cash flow issue.
Okay.
And this budget evaluation, I didn't mention this before, is based on the tentative amended budget that's posted on the web. So it's not based on the old original budget. With that said, for the transportation fund, reflective of the amended budget, we should be okay now in the expenditures on the transportation fund. And then if there are any questions on the bills, I know I sent a response to Joel today on some questions, and I forwarded it to the rest of you, so I'm not sure if anybody had any questions as a result of that email either.
I was, I read your answer, and the whole updating of Skyward sounds like a really nice piece to that.
Kathy told me if I didn't get that done before I left, she was going to badmouth me all over the place.
As a
I believe
parent,
that's a quote.
It is a quote.
as a parent
Yeah,
who has
so
to write checks.
It's obviously not going to be done before I leave. But we're hoping, Francesca's very competent with software, and Skyward is pretty easy to use. So Nancy Battaglia is going to help her out in the next few months. And I'm hoping Judy Duhai can handle the registration part. I'm going to do as much as I can before I leave to get that part done. So.
I mean, that just sounds like it's going to really benefit our district quite a bit for having had occasionally negative balance in children. Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Is that all you had? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the bills for the month of May 2010 in the amount of $1,300,451.11 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton,
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Are there any other public comments at this time? Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and interim superintendent candidates
And personnel?
and personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Lubeck,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Casey. Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes. And there will be a vote afterwards. The chair will entertain a motion to go back into open session.
I think we're just in it, right?
We're just in it? Okay. Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract of the assistant principal for the high school,
As presented?
as presented.
So moved. Sorry.
Okay, I just want to make a quick comment on that. I just want to state that my vote for, or on this issue, just represents some concerns I have over equity and fairness among administrative positions.
Okay, I second.
Second? I'll second.
Second, okay. And then roll call?
Okay. All right. Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
No.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Casey, yes. Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton, sorry. I do that all the time. I apologize. Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.